Hey everyone, Marcello here from GameCube Galaxy, and first off, I want to thank all you amazing fans, all 15K plus subscribers that have been supporting the channel since it launched on April of 2021. Now, I felt like this was a good way for me to kind of do another Q&A. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. Last time I think I did it was with the 2,500 subscriber one, so hitting 15K is a massive milestone for me. Now, I did a YouTube community post last week asking all of you fans if you had any questions you wanted to ask me for this upcoming video, and there's actually a good amount of questions people asked. So let's dive in and I'll provide answers to everyone's questions. Now, I am gonna go in the order that the questions were submitted. However, the only ones I'm going to put up on the top of the list first are the paid members, because honestly, I want to give them a little bit of an extra perk here for being paid members of the channel and further supporting the channel in a way that I can never thank them enough. So let's check them out. The first question comes from Akima AE and asks, what is your favorite GameCube game gimmick that turned out to actually make a game better? Mine is multiplayer on Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles using GBAs. It's a lot of additional hardware, but it's fantastic because it allows other players to manage their inventory without altering the gameplay experience of others. That's actually a really great question, and I did love the whole GBA connectivity with the GameCube. It really was the birth of dual screen gameplay. Well, I shouldn't say that. There was the Game & Watches back in the day, like the Donkey Kong Game & Watch that was dual screen. But in terms of bringing that back before the DS and the 3DS and the Wii U, right? The GameCube really pioneered that. For me though, the best game gimmick, I'm gonna say, is actually using the DK bongos with Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. I just reviewed the game a few months ago, and I originally played that on the Wii, but playing it on the GameCube for this channel and reviewing it and using the DK bongos, it was a totally different experience. It was so gratifying playing a 2D platformer with these bongos and with the game fully designed with that in mind. It was incredibly intuitive, and I loved how the faster you hit the bongos when you were fighting enemies, the faster Donkey Kong pummeled his enemies. And to me, that is immensely satisfying. It's also a workout. But yeah, DK Jungle Beat with the Donkey Kong bongos is definitely, I think, the best gimmick per se that I would recommend everyone play on the GameCube. Now, Akima does have one more question. Congratulations on the subs. This is a second question in case you need another for the video. What expensive GameCube game do you think is worth the price of admission? I know it's insane, but as a massive Pokemon fan, I've gotten a lot of use out of Pokemon Box. I think the $1,150 I paid for it was worth it. Out of all the expensive games available on the GameCube, and I'm talking like the ones that are several hundreds of dollars, right? We're talking about 300, 400 plus. For me, I would say Go-Go Hyper Grind is the one I'm most excited to have out of those to actually play through. While I'm excited to have Disney Sports Basketball being the most expensive game on the GameCube for North America, it's something about Go-Go Hyper Grind when I covered it in my Hidden Gems episode where I'm like, yeah, you know what? This one's an expensive game, but it actually is kind of worth the price because of how cool it is and how fun it is and how wild it is. So that's what comes to mind for me. So they're great questions. Okay, so the next question comes from another paid member that I'm very thankful to have on board, and that is Smith B. And he asks, I'd like your thoughts on pricing. GameCube seems to be the most volatile used games market, with games like Sonic Adventure 2 Battle spiking and diving in price. Not to mention the price increase overall in the last couple of years. How do you feel about buying something when you see it / have the opportunity versus waiting on an overall price drop that may not happen? I'd love your thoughts on the whole topic. This can also divulge into in-person versus online. I find that being in the store and wanting to support a small business will often make me not mind the extra few bucks compared to price charting. Yes, the GameCube market has been pretty volatile, right? The last 5 years, it's been a roller coaster ride. A lot of games have skyrocketed, many games have gone down in price quite a bit, and it continues to kind of go up and down. You know, look at Disney Sports Basketball. That was a game that was maybe less than $100 before 2019, and then it skyrocketed and continued to skyrocket to hit $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. Now we're seeing that go down to like $950 roughly. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, same thing. It kind of went up with the movies. It further went up. Popularity of Sonic skyrocketed even more. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, for example, is like an $80+ game complete in box. But here's my thing. If you're not going for a complete set, get the games that you really feel like you want to have in your collection, right? The games that are meaningful, that have something behind it. So something like Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, if you love it, it's like throw down the money for it and get it because you're gonna be happy that you actually have it in your collection. It's kind of hard to gauge if it's going to go down in price anymore, unless there's maybe a remaster of the game. And I know right now, Sonic team has stated they are not looking to remaster any of the Sonic Adventure games. However, what I will say is this: if you can support a local retro game store business, do that. eBay is great and all, it's convenient, just like Amazon or whatever. But if you can support a local business that's a retro game store and keep them up and running, and they charge maybe $5 more in a game, you know what? Support them. Definitely go support them. I'm very much all for supporting a local retro game store business. So yeah, I guess the order I would say is support a local retro game store, and if you can't find it there, whatever game you're looking for, then go ahead, try to find it on eBay, try to find it on Goodies, see if you can get a good deal and go that route. But yeah, that's the order I would go in. So that's a great question. Okay, so next question, we're gonna start going down the order from the oldest to the newest questions. The first question was from Alan Brown, and he asks, worst GameCube memory? Everybody does best, but do you remember a time renting or buying a game that really let you down? I do. It wasn't a game I rented, it wasn't a game I bought, it was a game I received on Christmas. And that game, I know you guys are gonna be pissed about this one, Mario Kart Double Dash. So Mario Kart Double Dash was a game I was very excited for. I loved Super Mario Kart on the SNES, and I loved Mario Kart 64. Not as much as Diddy Kong Racing, but I still loved Mario Kart 64. I played it a ton. Then I actually played Mario Kart Super Circuit on the GBA, and I really enjoyed that too. When Double Dash came out, I loved the idea of the two-rider concept, the graphics looked amazing, I was really excited about this. But the moment I got this on that Christmas of 2003 and I fired it up on the console, I was disappointed. Let alone, it was mostly the physics that bothered me in the game. But there's a variety of issues I have with this game, and honestly, one day I'm going to review this on the channel. I'm probably gonna get more thumbs down than anything else, unless you just listen to my reasoning when I do the full review, but I will say that the biggest deterrence for me with this game is the physics. I can't stand the handling in this game. I feel like it's ironic. I just reviewed Automodelista, which doesn't have the greatest controls or physics, but like this game, the physics and the controls are, it almost feels like I'm driving a Dodge Viper on ice. That's what it really feels like to me, honestly. So I'll dive into it in a review, but this is the game that disappointed me, I think, more than any other game I received in my childhood for the GameCube, like bar none. I love that question though, you're right. A lot of people talk about their best, but not their worst memory, and yeah, unfortunately, this is tied to my worst memory. Sorry, guys. All right, next question comes from Ryan UV4ZI. Sorry, I'm not sure how I would say that as a word. U4Z? U4Z? U4Z. Ryan U4Z. All right, we're gonna go with it. So, he asks, would you pay $200 for Chibi Robo or $150 for Def Jam Vendetta Battle for New York? $200 for Chibi Robo, it depends. Me personally, no. It's a really good game. I reviewed it on the channel literally about a month or so ago, and I really enjoyed my time with it. But would I say it's worth paying $200 for it? No, I don't think so. That's a game, I think if it had to be one of the more expensive ones, I'd spend probably no more than like 100 on it, 120. Even that's kind of steep. Again, I really enjoyed my time with it, but it's one of those games I beat, I really enjoyed, and I'm probably not gonna play again. As far as Def Jam Fight for New York, I actually have not played that one yet. I've played Def Jam Vendetta a ton and absolutely loved the first game. But the sequel, everyone's told me is a lot better, and I have yet to play it, so I don't want to answer that one, but I will say, if you love Def Jam Vendetta, apparently the sequel is that much better. So if you can find a good deal on it, maybe snag it. Until then, I have to cover it on the channel, and I'll give you my honest thoughts when I eventually review it or cover it in a topic-based episode. So, great question. All right, next question comes from NA Player 3, and he asks, outside of this channel, what is the thing you are most proud of? Any achievements? And what is the thing you wish you knew earlier? I'll be honest, the thing I'm most proud of is my family. I'm a big person that believes in family. I love my family, my beautiful wife, my two beautiful children. They are my greatest accomplishments. Being able to come home from work every day and see them, there's no greater feeling in the world. That's my greatest accomplishment, and it always will be till my last breath. It's not to be cliche, it's honest to God, that is wholeheartedly from the bottom of my heart. As far as what is the thing I wish I knew earlier, I wish I knew how expensive some of these GameCube games were going to be back when the Wii came out, and these games you could have got for like $1.99, if even. I would have bought 18 copies of Disney Sports Basketball, 18 copies of, I don't know, NCAA, if you could have even found 18 copies of that game, let alone like 2. I also would have bought every variant, like the Sonic Dual Pack, which is just stupid priced. Yeah, I think I would have bought all that stuff, because even that Sonic Dual Pack that goes for thousands, I used to come across that at EB Games all the time by me, all the time. And I'm kicking myself for never buying that and keeping it sealed. But who would have knew the market would become what it became 20 years ago? So yeah, that's what I guess I should say I wish I knew earlier. Oh, and Pokemon Box, because I used to go to the Nintendo store all the time in New York City, and I used to see a ton of them. I should have just bought them all. Who has a time machine? All right, next question comes from 2112 Rusher Man, and he states, have you played Freakstyle on the GameCube? Once you get the controls down, it's a blast. I go back to it all the time, but not a lot of people talk about it, unfortunately. So actually, you're in luck. Freakstyle is not only a childhood favorite of mine, but it is one I did review on the channel if you haven't seen it, and it is very much a game I really enjoyed. Granted, the game has a few quirks, but it's basically SSX Tricky meets motocross, and honestly, that's pretty badass. Great soundtrack, great level design, fun characters, a fun trick system. Yeah, honestly, it's a game that I really do recommend more people check out, and if you have it, or you don't even know what it is, or anything like that, I will leave a link in the description down below of my review for Freakstyle, because a lot more people need to check that one out, and honestly, add it to their collection. Ultimately, I'm just glad that somebody else played Freakstyle, because it really is a hidden gem for the GameCube that nobody talks about and really deserves a lot more praise. So if you're curious about it, watch the review for all you viewers. And Rusher Man, since you asked, definitely check out the review and you'll see my full thoughts on that. Kudos for the shouting out Freakstyle, man. Next question comes from ZachSphere6328, and he asks, which is your favorite song from Super Smash Bros. Melee and Mario Kart Double Dash? Oh man, that's tough. Honestly, my favorite song for Super Smash Bros. Melee is probably Big Blue. The arranged song that they have for it is fantastic. Honestly, when I first played the adventure mode, I remember getting to the Big Blue stage, and when that song was playing and the guitar riff was going for it, I was like, this is badass. I love this rendition of Big Blue. Honestly, that's easily my favorite song. That, maybe Fountain of Dreams. God, the soundtrack of Super Smash Bros. Melee is god tier. As far as Mario Kart Double Dash, I'd probably say Dry Dry Desert is my favorite song in the game, let alone maybe the menu select music, but I didn't love the soundtrack for Mario Kart Double Dash. Compared to Mario Kart 64, it's good, it just wasn't as good, except for Dry Dry Desert. That one was really good. So yeah, great question. Honestly, I love anything with game soundtracks and any questions like that. I love that stuff, so that's great. Next question comes from Scott Barker 5593, and he states, congrats on 15K, man. I think I've been here since almost the very beginning and I've watched every video. Keep up the great work, man. My question is, what is your second favorite game console? Okay, so first off, thank you for being a fan since the very beginning and actually watching every video. That's impressive. There's over 125 videos I've made for the channel. So thank you for being a fan. That means a lot. As far as my second favorite game console, that's tough. I mean, I love the N64. I really, really love the N64. But oh man, this is tough. I'm gonna have to say though, I think my second favorite game console, probably the PS3. I'm gonna be honest, I loved the PS3. Coming from the GameCube and then going to the PlayStation 3, that was my console of choice for the 7th gen. It was the console I had the most games for. It was a time when I was going to college, I was working, so I actually had disposable income. And I remember buying a ton of PS3 games. I played a ton of my PS3 library. I've got well over 200 games boxed. And at least 70% of them I've played and beaten. And that's not even counting the digital titles I bought from PlayStation Network. So yeah, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for me going back in like 2017 to start collecting for GameCube again, I would say the PS3 was the console that I had the biggest library for, and because I love the console that much. So yeah, great question. I mean, it's a tough one because there's so many consoles I love, but that's the next one I have that I have so many memories playing. All right, next question comes from the mighty Mesprit7325, and he states, congrats on 15K GameCube Galaxy. My question is, what's the rarest, most expensive game you own that isn't a GameCube game? And also, what is a gaming oddity novelty that you own that you love? Okay, so most expensive game I have in my collection that is not a GameCube game? Give me a second. That's gonna be Castlevania Legends on the Game Boy. This is a game that goes for $800 complete in box. This is my childhood copy. I bought this for $20 thanks to my dad for giving me 20 bucks when we were at the mall one day. I remember seeing this and I'm like, man, I would love to have a Castlevania game on the Game Boy because I didn't have Castlevania Adventure and I didn't have Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge because I never saw those in the stores. But this, I was like, oh, this looks really cool. Picked it up. I know a lot of people don't love this game. I'm gonna say that I'm on the other side of that. Personally, I think it's a nostalgia thing. I've played this game so many times, I love it, and I never expected it to skyrocket in value the way it did. So this is the most expensive game I have in my collection that is not GameCube related. As far as a gaming oddity or novelty that I own that I really love, I'd probably say my Polymega. It's a console that is modular and you can install a variety of CD-based console games, and you can get modules to install like NES games, SNES games, 64 games, and have everything on this all-in-one unified unit. I feel like that's something that has basically flown under the radar. There's been some issues with getting the consoles out, but it is something that I have that I very much love, and it's something that I've contemplated covering on the channel. It's not GameCube related, but it is something that I am very much a big fan of. So it's an oddity. It's not something that a lot of people have or talk about, but it's something that I very much love. So great questions. So the next question comes from Gerardo Exper, and he states, congrats. Question. What do you think are like the top 5 games that are better played on a GameCube, either released for both N64 and GameCube, GameCube and Wii, multi-platform, or games ported from systems outside Nintendo to the Cube? This is a great question. It's a varied question, so I'll try to pick snippets of 5 games across a variety of those. So like something in the sense of N64 to GameCube, I'm gonna state play Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 on the GameCube, not on the N64, although it's very impressive that the N64 got that game as their final game on the console. But on the GameCube, the game is phenomenal. From GameCube and Wii, the first game that comes to mind for me is gonna be the TMNT game from 2007. I reviewed that on the channel, and it was so much more enjoyable for me to play that with a GameCube controller than back when I actually originally played it in 2007 on launch day for the Wii, and I basically got carpal tunnel waggling the remote to attack for about 4 hours. That one's terrible with the motion controls. It was so much better with traditional controller. Multi-platform games, things I would say are SSX3 for me. I know it has one less button for the tricks, but the game has faster loading and the progressive scan, and the game looks fantastic on the GameCube. It runs phenomenal. I'd far rather play it on GameCube than pretty much any other platform. Another one that's multi-platform for me that really stands out is Super Monkey Ball, because Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2 were initially exclusives on the GameCube, but they later got ported as a compilation called Super Monkey Ball Deluxe on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, and those console versions are far inferior to the GameCube originals. The PS2 version runs at 30 frames per second, and the fact that it has a circular analog stick as opposed to the octagonal one provides for far less precision. And then the Xbox, it runs at a higher frame rate, but it doesn't have the octagonal cutout for the controller, let alone it's just not ideal without that controller. Like, you really need a GameCube controller to fully appreciate Super Monkey Ball. Heck, even the newer Super Monkey Ball games that have released on the Switch, I've actually used the GameCube controller for, because that's the only way I could play. Another game that comes to mind though that is far superior on the GameCube than whatever platform we went to afterwards is gonna be Resident Evil 4 for me. Resident Evil 4 for me was a benchmark of how to make a AAA game back then. And when it came to the PS2, I remember seeing it right away and I was like, wow, visually it's pretty muddy. Like, it's impressive, but it's muddy. And then the audio was the kicker where I was like, wow, the bitrate is heavily compressed here and it sounds like something recorded on a cassette tape. It's pretty jarring. Despite the fact that the PS2 version had more content, the GameCube version controlled, looked, and sounded far better than the PS2 counterpart. So those are 5 games that come to mind that are played better on the GameCube than on other platforms or ports. So great question. All right, next question comes from Ahmad Fahad 6163, and he states, are you going to create content only about GameCube for the channel? I think you have the potential to be even more successful if you make content about Switch 2 and other Nintendo consoles as well. So honestly, this is something I've kind of gone back and forth on. I've really contemplated it, and if you notice, I've actually done episodes covering other consoles for the generation. So I've done episodes like top 10 PS2 games I wish came to the GameCube, or top 10 Xbox or Dreamcast games I wish came to the GameCube, or even like Game Boy Color games and Game Boy Advance games I've covered, thanks to the Game Boy player being attached to the GameCube. I've covered other platforms, but I've tried to still tie it to the GameCube in some capacity. I've done Switch coverage a little bit, and I really mean like a little bit. Basically, I did a video where I did a comparison video of Metroid Prime versus Metroid Prime Remastered, and that was one of the more intricate videos I've ever edited for the channel, to be honest with you. And I love the way that turned out, and it did really well. I even did a Switch 2 video highlighting the GameCube controller and the NSO and comparing it to original hardware. Again, it did fine. So the only thing is that because there's so many other channels out there doing Switch stuff, for example, or Switch 2 or other Nintendo consoles, GameCube was the one that I found nobody was really doing, and it was kind of a niche market, and that's why I dove for it 5 years ago when I created the idea, and 4 years ago when I finally launched the channel. But For now, I'm gonna say I'm not looking to dive into anything else, but it is something that has been on my mind for a while, and I do have a plan for something should I continue. And I'm only gonna say that at this time until I know for sure I'm going to go a certain direction. But that's a good question. I can understand wanting to see other content for the channel. Again, I may kind of dabble in other things, but again, at a later time. So good question. All right, next question comes from Joey Black 7623, and he asks, "Hey GameCube Galaxy, bravo for this achievement. What are the worst GameCube games for you? Do you have the full set? Thanks for the passion in your vids." First off, appreciate the kind words about you noticing the passion in the video quality, so that means a lot. As far as the worst GameCube games for me, God, Spirits and Spells. I despise that game. I really despise that game. That was one of the most painful games I've ever had to review. That one's really bad. Trigger Man is really bad. Charlie's Angels is really bad. And then a few months ago, I did a video on more European GameCube exclusives, and there is one game I cover on there. I think it's the first game in that episode, called World Racing. That game was the big rigs for the GameCube. There's a reason that never left Europe, and good Lord, that actually made the other three games I mentioned say, yeah, you know what? We're not the worst anymore. It's atrocious. That's probably the worst GameCube game because it's borderline broken, like unplayable broken. So yeah, that's probably the worst. As far as the full set, yes, I do have the full set actually. If you look at a video I did, it's called It's Over, and that video shows me getting the final game I needed for the collection, and at the end of it is a little montage or a little moment I shared of completing the collection, which I was really, really psyched with how it came out. So definitely go watch that video. I'll link that down below if you haven't seen it yet so you can see the full set in that video. So great questions. Next question comes from Night Squats, and he asks, "Cheers to the 15K, to your great hard work, and to the mighty Cube. Question, what are your top controllers that you enjoy playing GameCube with, whether first party, third party, Bluetooth, or whatever?" So first party for me is obviously going to be the Wavebird. That controller was pretty revolutionary. I mean, it really set the standard for wireless controllers from first party. As far as third party, for me personally, it's easily going to be the Retro Fighters Battler GC Pro controller. I've reviewed it on the channel. I absolutely love those controllers to the point where I actually gravitate toward those a lot when I don't want to use the Wavebird. Like, that is the controller I will go to if I'm not using the Wavebird on the GameCube. But furthermore, I will actually use it on the Switch and Switch 2. Retro Fighters Battler GC Pro controller, I cannot recommend enough for a third-party controller for the GameCube that you can use on the Wii, the Switch, and the Switch 2. So yeah, that's my answer for that. So good question. So Seth Modge writes in and he asks, "How was it like being a fan of the GameCube back in the day when it seemed like everyone was dissing the console in favor of PlayStation 2 or Xbox?" So honestly, it wasn't that bad. I mean, even though I was a fan of the GameCube, we had a PlayStation 2 in my household already because my brother had that. So I'd play PS2 games in his room and he'd play GameCube games in my room. We'd play each other's consoles. Growing up in school though, yeah, people made fun of the GameCube as like, "Oh, you got that like really dumb purple console." And I'm like, first off, I got the jet black color. Second off, I'm like, we got Resident Evil Remake coming out. And I know a lot of people were playing Grand Theft Auto 3 and Metal Gear Solid 2 at the time of the GameCube's launch. But when Resident Evil Remake came out, this was a pivotal moment for GameCube, because it really showcased Nintendo was not screwing around and that they were getting mature rated games. That game was exclusive to the console. It showed the power of the GameCube, and anyone that you showed that game to, that if they even remotely made fun of the GameCube, immediately shut their mouths because they were like, what? 2 or 3 months later, you had Eternal Darkness for the GameCube, and that was Nintendo's first M-rated game. So it wasn't too bad, because once you started highlighting these games to those people back then, they were immediately like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's not for kids as much. And that was the point. It was kind of for a wide range of everybody. So yeah, it was an interesting time. I wouldn't say it was too bad, but there was memories associated with it. Next up is my good friend Humble Mud Games, who's been a supporter of the channel for quite a while, and he's actually been featured on the channel in my Essential Multiplayer GameCube Games collaboration episode. And he states, "Congrats, brother. What are some of your personal favorite videos you've made? Whether that's due to the subject matter, the way the video turned out, the memories, whatever." Good question. Honestly, when I look at a lot of the videos, some of them that really stand out, I mean, there's a lot. I'm very proud of pretty much every video I've done, but the ones that I really think of that I want to showcase to people if they've never come across the channel yet, I love the way my F-Zero review turned out. It's my most popular video on the channel. I've released it on the game's 20th anniversary, and that video took off, and I'm glad it did because I held off on that review for timing's sake. And thankfully that's a video that everybody came across and really enjoyed. Another one that stands out for me is the Every 007 GameCube game episode. I really love the way the intro turned out for that. I really enjoyed that one. Just a video overall. Then there's the Enter the Matrix review I did, where even the intro for that I got very creative with, and I really enjoyed putting that one together as a whole. Then there's even episodes like I mentioned earlier about like the top 10 PS2 games or Xbox games or Dreamcast games that I wish came to the GameCube. Those I had a lot of fun with. I got really creative with those. Even the Every Star Wars GameCube game episode, that's another one I had a lot of fun putting together. Another one I really enjoyed was my Southeast Game Exchange 2023 video, where I got Gacha Force without spending a dime out of my pocket. And that whole storytelling I thought was very unique for the channel. Another video I loved that I made as well was actually when I finally talked about Game Boy Advance games, but I talked about ports of GameCube games that were on the Game Boy Advance. And I would show the GameCube version as I'm talking about it, and then transition it to a shot of the Game Boy Advance version and start talking about that. And that I really enjoyed making. It was a chance for me to really dive into Game Boy Advance ports of GameCube games. And honestly, that was just for a handful of titles. There's so many more I could talk about, so I want to do follow-up episodes with that topic. So yeah, great question. Honestly, I really enjoy the videos I make, but there are certain ones like I highlighted there that really stand out for me personally. So great question. All right, my good friend Vux Collects actually writes in and asks, what's the game that has the most meaning to you outside of just being fun/good? Also, big grats, brother. Your quality has improved so much since you first started the channel, and your success is proof of that. One of my favorite retro channels, 20K up next. I'm hoping, man. Let's hope we can get to 20K sooner rather than later. But I appreciate the kind words. As far as a game that has the most meaning to me, right, for me this second, a part of me wants to say F-Zero GX. And the reason is because at the time I was working at my eldest brother's deli, and it was the first time I ever worked a real job. And I got paid after working that weekend. It was insane work. I had never seen work like it before because it was so fast paced. It was nonstop. It was 12 hours of just constantly on your feet, constantly moving, like never letting up. But it was so gratifying. Like I felt like I grew as an individual at that moment. Now, I remember when I got paid, he told me, he's like, hey, listen, but save the money. Don't just buy a game with it. Like, you know, save it, right? I was like, yeah. I was 14 years old. 14 or 15, I forget, I was around that range. And then F-Zero GX had just come out, literally like 2 days after I finished working that weekend. So I was at the mall, I'm like, oh yeah, this came out. So I bought it, and sure enough, as I leave, who do I run into? My brother that I worked with, and he just paid me. He's like, oh, what'd you buy? I'm like, oh, no, nothing. But for me, the reason why it has so much meaning is because I worked hard that weekend to get the money for whatever I wanted, but a portion of that money I used for that game, and I felt like I really worked hard to even have to get that game. So that's something that comes to mind for me, is just like, you know, hard work pays off, and that there's a reward for those who actually work for what they want. So that's why it has meaning for me. It has like a takeaway for a message. So that's a good question, Bucks. The next question comes from Eminence Through Tenacity, and he asks, now that you have Disney Sports Basketball, do you plan on completing the GameCube library with Pokemon Box Ruby and Sapphire? I have every GameCube exclusive other than Pokemon Box, but seems like a lofty goal to achieve. So honestly, short answer, no. I have no plans of getting Pokemon Box unless somebody happens to just send me a copy that they just willingly want to give me. That's about it. And I'm not asking for anybody. I'm just saying that's the only way. I'm not going to shell money out for it. It doesn't make sense to get it because it's not even a game. It's a software application on a disc. I used to run across it all the time at Nintendo New York in the city. Again, I had opportunities to get it. I'm kicking myself for not getting a bunch of copies, but it was never anything that interested me. And honestly, Pokemon for me, outside of Gen 1 and Gen 2, I'm not into it. I don't know. I can't see myself going that far to get a software application just to say I have it. So eventually, if I came across it and happens to just, you know, land in my hand and it's not going to cost me a fortune, maybe. But as of right now, no. I'm not stressing over it. So good question. Next question comes from 35 April 1, and he states, congratulations on the 15K subs, man. Proud of you. Said it before, say it again. Best GameCube channel on YouTube. Dude, means a lot. That's awesome. He asks, what is your favorite console besides the GameCube, and what are your favorite games for that console? So kind of in line with that question I received earlier, where somebody else asked what my second favorite console was, I guess I'm going to stick with PS3 right now, just because that's what I stated earlier. And favorite games for me would be like Uncharted 2, God of War 3, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 1 and 2, Resistance 1, not 2, and Resistance 1 and 3. 2 I didn't love, but 1 and 3 I thought were fantastic. Motor Storm, Heavenly Sword, Ratchet and Clank games, Split Second, phenomenal racing game, Split Second. Those are just games that come off the top of my mind immediately that really stand out for the console that I loved and played to no end. Those are games that just come to mind like immediately for that console that were like, yeah, these are just must-play games. So great questions, man, and thank you again for the high praise. Next up, OffenOS10 asks, do you have any tips for content creation in 2025 other than just go for it, LOL? Like strategies, I would say. I would say create what you want, but find something that's niche. Find something that you don't normally see. So like, for example, when I created GameCube Galaxy, there really wasn't any GameCube content created channels doing high quality reviews or topic-based videos. So that's why I went that route. I would say it's about a matter of finding something that there's not too much of that people will enjoy. Even if it's a niche topic, like GameCube, for example, is a very niche platform, but I'm grateful to have 15K people who subscribe to the channel that watch the content here and there. When I created content originally, it was another channel called Gamers Extreme, and that was a little bit of everything. It was like unboxing and a variety of platforms, and it was like kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none, and it was way too much of a roller coaster of reviews, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. So find something that's niche, find something that you love that's niche, and make content based on that. That's what I would say to start with. And if you have that, the rest falls in place. See, like even me, I try to reply back to every comment as much as I possibly can in all the videos because I want to treat others the way I want to be treated too, right? You know, if you treat others right, they'll come to you. And that's the biggest thing I can tell you. But if you have any other questions with this stuff or you want to chat about this, by all means, feel free to reach out on my X account, my Instagram account. I even have my email, I believe, on the description of the channel. So again, feel free to reach out if you're looking for more tips and I could definitely share you more ideas. Frothy Pro states, congratulations on the 15K. Thank you, bud. John McCrane 9772 asks, got any guilty pleasures on the GameCube? Congrats on hitting the 15K milestone. Thank you for that, John. Guilty pleasures on the GameCube, for me, the #1 guilty pleasure is Smashing Drive. That's a game that objectively is not great and is campy as can be, but I absolutely adore that game. I've put so many hours into that game and it takes like 30 minutes to beat, not even. But it's a game I remember getting for 10 bucks, brand new back in the day when it was maybe out for a few months. And to this day, I still pop that game in regularly because it's such a quick game to play through, but it's just good fun. So yeah, Smashing Drive is probably my biggest guilty pleasure on the GameCube, bar none. 64-bit Gamer drops in and asks, if you could go to when you started out collecting for GameCube with the benefit of hindsight, what would you do differently? I guess the biggest thing would say if I knew what games were going to be really expensive now, I would have got those much earlier. Even if I started collecting in 2017 again, I could have easily gone for like Disney Sports Basketball for less than 100 bucks, right? I guess the biggest thing I would say is if I had that sight, knowing that the games were going to be so expensive later on in life, when the games were so cheap, when the Wii was out and they were getting rid of GameCube games for like less than $10 a pop, I probably should have just went very heavy on collecting for the GameCube back then. It would have costed me a fraction of its current value, without question. So that's what I would say, is if I could do that, that's what I would have done. Vitamin D Deficiency 8570 asks, good work and thanks for the great channel. Do you collect for other platforms or is it mainly the GameCube? Either way, how many variants of the console and peripherals do you have, and what are your thoughts on emulation for expensive or rare games? So yeah, I do collect for other platforms without question. The GameCube I went very heavy on back like in 2017, I think like I stated earlier, because I initially had about 73 games in my GameCube library from my childhood, and then little by little I started going after the rest of the library. But before that, honestly, for me, the PS3 being my second favorite console, that one was where I really started collecting games, right? I started really buying a lot of games. But other platforms that come to mind recently, I love getting complete in-box N64 games because the N64 is very synonymous to my childhood. I love getting complete in-box Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games currently. And honestly, I've been enjoying that so much as well, where I've been playing the Mod Retro Chromatic and playing a lot of my Game Boy games that way, or even buying brand new Game Boy games that they've been releasing. So that's more or less what I've been really into collecting right now, is that stuff right there. As far as variants for the console, I do have a few variants for the GameCube. I mean, I have the custom one that was made for me by my good friend, the Game Dungeon. Then I've got the Platinum variant. I've got my Jet Black Original. And then as far as peripherals, I mean, I have the microphone, I've got the Game Boy player, I've got the DK Bongo, I've got the GBA GC cable. The only thing I'm really missing in terms of peripherals for the GameCube is probably the broadband adapter. I more or less have, I think, all the essentials, peripheral-wise and variant-wise. I'm just missing like maybe a Japanese console of sorts, maybe a Spice Orange. So yeah, I mean, I basically have a lot of the peripherals that the GameCube had over the course of its life cycle, and a decent amount of variants for the actual GameCube consoles themselves. So good question. Europa Twin asks, what's your favorite nostalgic underrated GameCube game? Like maybe other people think it's not that great, but you hold it close to your heart because you played it when you were younger. I think again, this one kind of goes down to Smashing Drive. Another one that comes to mind is ESPN International Winter Sports, which I think is very much a hidden gem for the console. And another one I'll state on top of those is actually Enter the Matrix. That's a game that, as ridiculous as the running animations are in that game and as buggy as it is, I played that game to no end because it was just fun. It was just a fun time. So yeah, those are three games, at least three games, that I would say are games that I very much find underrated. So good question. So Jonas7417 asks, are there any aftermarket GameCube games you have and could recommend? Also, what is your favorite franchise and why? As far as aftermarket GameCube games, I mean, I'm taking it as like, you know, games that came out after the GameCube was even relevant. Recently, we actually got a GameCube physical release, which was Xenocrisis for the GameCube. Granted, this you need a modded GameCube to play, but it's an aftermarket game and it counts. And honestly, I really enjoyed playing that on the GameCube. So as far as favorite franchise, that's a tough one. There's a lot of franchises I love, but for some reason, the one that's standing out to me the most is the Ninja Gaiden franchise. I've played and beaten every Ninja Gaiden game across every platform, and I cannot wait for Ninja Gaiden 4 coming out in, what, a week and a half, 2 weeks by the time of this video? So yeah, probably favorite franchise would be Ninja Gaiden. Bennymation90 asks, if you are able to revive any canceled video game, which one would it be? Ooh, that's tough. If I were able to revive any canceled video game, it would probably be Conker's Other Bad Fur Day. I was really excited at the prospect of a new Conker game coming to the GameCube after how hilariously awesome the N64 original was. But because, you know, Microsoft decided to buy Rare and to totally destroy the company, we never got that. How's Microsoft doing these days? Good question. That's a tough one, but I like that question. Spewbin69 states, congratulations on the 15K. Do you use HDMI converters to play on a modern TV? If you could recommend any, that would be very helpful. Here is to 30K. Thank you, Spewbin. Yes, I'd use an EON GCHD that plugs into the back of a DOL001 GameCube model, which allows for a zero lag HDMI output coming out of the console's digital AV port. So I use that and I pair it with an mClassic, which actually cleans up some of the jagged edges and it ups the res a little bit. So all the footage you see of the games on my channel are using the EON GCHD paired with the mClassic, but it's all off original hardware. So that's what I would use. I've done a video, the GameCube Essential Buyer's Guide video, where I show that EON GCHD and other alternatives. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But yeah, I would recommend those if you really want the cleanest image possible for your GameCube, as long as you have the original DOL001 model GameCubes that have that digital AV port in the back. So I hope that helps. Jarrell Edson 5301 states, congratulations on 15K. Is there any GameCube games out there that you don't want to make videos on for one reason or another? And is there a particular GameCube game that you consider your personal favorite? Keep up the great reviews. Thank you, Jarrell. Yeah, I mean, honestly, games I don't look forward to reviewing, like ever, but I probably will have to at some point maybe, is like Dora the Explorer or the Bratz games, Mary Kate and Ashley. Yeah, those are games I have like zero interest in ever wanting to review. As far as a particular GameCube game that's my favorite, I'm probably gonna go with Resident Evil 4. That was the game that really blew my mind playing it back in the day, and to this day still holds up really well. Even despite the remake being out, that's actually fantastic as well. So great questions. Next question comes from Craggle Lord, and he states, what games did you pick up / play at launch, and what did you think of them at the time? After having both an SNES and N64, my mom got me the GameCube in summer of 2002 as a reward for getting good grades for going into what would be your middle school, I think. I'm from the UK. I had Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and 007 Agent Under Fire at launch, and they were so fun, but I was jealous that everyone I knew had PS2s and were playing GTA and more mature games. However, looking back, now I don't regret it as I got plenty more games as the years went on and had so much fun with my little purple box. I have around 70 games now, and it's still one of my favorite systems. P.S. Love your channel and the positive vibes of your videos. Thank you, Craggle Lord, that means a lot. First off, I love that your mom got you this as a reward for getting good grades. That's good parenting right there. Second thing is, what games did I get at launch? So the GameCube is something I got on Christmas of 2001, and I actually have that video digitized and put on the channel to show when I got it, that moment. And the 5 games I got that Christmas on launch were Luigi's Mansion, Wave Race Blue Storm, Star Wars Rogue Leader, Rogue Squadron 2, NHL Hits 2002, and Super Smash Bros. Melee. And that was that was my favorite Christmas of all time, bar none. So yeah, those are my launch titles, and what a launch lineup I had to start with. And then like a week later, I remember using some Christmas money and I bought Simpsons Road Rage as well. So I love the GameCube's launch lineup, and case in point, those titles I brought up are pretty much bangers. So that's a great question and a great story. Boxing Bob comes in and states, congrats on 15K, here's to 15K more. Thank you, Boxing Bob. Hopefully we can get to 15K more. Next question comes from JoshManGamer255, and he states, the only 2 questions that you can answer for the video is about reviewing every single Nickelodeon game that is on the GameCube, and that also includes all the Lord of the Rings games, Harry Potter games, and Sonic games, and all the Bratz games that were released in the GameCube. And that also includes the 2 Metroid Prime games before Prime 4 comes out, and that also includes the Dora the Explorer Journey to the Purple Planet released for the GameCube, like you doing a review on that. And the second question, about you having plans on collecting all the accessories and GameCube selects that are released on the Nintendo GameCube, and also your goal to collect games that were released for the Wii. Those are the only questions that you could do for the video, and I do understand you can only answer 1 to 2 questions per submission. Okay, so a lot to unpack here. So Josh, so basically my plan is to try to review every game on the channel eventually. That is a big goal I have. So this way, what's nice is there'll be a playlist of all the reviews all in one place, right? As far as doing individual reviews, I have done episodes where it's covered like every one of those games in a series. So I've done like every Lord of the Rings GameCube game, every Sonic GameCube game, every Harry Potter GameCube game. And I do a fairly decent breakdown of each one of those where it's not as in-depth as a review, but I definitely break down my thoughts as I play through those. So for now, it's just gonna be a matter of when rather than if. So eventually we will, but I just stated before, like the Bratz games, Dora game, I'm not reviewing those anytime soon. So as far as collecting the like accessories and the GameCube selects and the Wii versions, I mean, I have a bunch of those accessories already. I just need a broadband adapter, and I basically have, I think, every GameCube accessory that released. As far as like the GameCube Select or the player's choice rather, not really a goal of mine. I'm not really looking to complete that. It doesn't really mean anything in terms of having a complete set. I have every game at least that's playable on disc. So that's kind of where I'm at with that, if that makes sense. And then as far as Wii versions of games, maybe, I don't know. It kind of depends. There's a handful of GameCube games that got Wii ports, so maybe I'll get a few more. I have a few already, but I don't have any plans to go for like a full set of those either. So great questions though. They are good questions. Tissue Stuff 1016 asks, do you plan to broaden GameCube love virtual consoles and beyond the Cube legacy, such as in the near future, after all GameCube games are covered? Again, there is a plan I have if I continue content past the GameCube's lifespan in terms of the channel, right? In terms of covering everything. But at that point, it'll be more me reevaluating where I am in my life before I decide to move forward with that. Regardless, I'll state what that idea is, even if it doesn't come to fruition, but stick around for the ride because it's a long ride ahead for GameCube content. So, good question. And the last question comes from Alex64 Gaming, and he asks, congrats on the 15K. What are your top 5 consoles outside of Nintendo? I'm very curious what your answer will be. So outside of the GameCube, I think you meant just GameCube, because if we say Nintendo, I can't mention any Nintendo platforms. So this is in no particular order, but outside of the GameCube, my other top 5 consoles will be the PS2, the PS3, the N64, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. Hands down, like those are like all the platforms I need to really enjoy a great time of gaming. So that's a good question, good question. So that'll wrap up today's Q&A for the 15K special. It really means so much hearing everyone's questions for the channel and for the content and all that good stuff. It really means more than you know. And furthermore, thank each and every one of you that have supported the channel, whether from the very beginning or if you're a newcomer. It means more than you know that you guys look forward to the content, that you support the content, that you comment and you provide engagement to the videos. It really is beyond humbling. So thank you all again for the support. Additionally, I want to give a quick shout out to my GCG Nation enthusiasts, Local S'mores Pop-Tart, Retro Wolf, Alejandro Mendoza, Julio Cesar Garcia Zamora 34, Daniel Herrera, Akima, MJA42X, Smith B, and Jonas Rye. If you really enjoy the content and are interested in further supporting the channel, click that join button, and for $2 a month, you'll get early access to videos, membership shoutouts and videos, and exclusive icons that I made that go next to your username when commenting. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you all in the next episode, GCG Nation.